That's right. Thanks so much for that update. We do have Max Farrell, CEO and co-founder over at Workhound. Max, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Always a pleasure to be with you guys.
So, Max, we're talking about something that's not just impacting the freight world, but really the entire world, or I should say the U.S. industry overall, and that's going to be tenure and retention. Yeah. Let's jump into it.
Yeah. All right, let's do it.
So jumping into it, we're looking at some of the current demographics with kind of looking at tenure time, especially with millennials. What are some talking points around that?
Yeah, so one of the things that's we're all trying to figure out right now is how do we improve retention inside the workforce. Of course, the folks that are tuning in right now, a lot of us are focused on driver retention in trucking, and it's understandable. The average annual turnover rate is 95% in this industry, and if you go down the road, you'll often see some of these trucks that say we hire to retire. But the reality is that the data doesn't support that sort of thing. Like in trucking, a company would love to keep a driver just for 1 year. And if you look outside of trucking into just other workforces right now, the average millennial is inside a company for an average of 18 to 36 months. And so I know that people are saying, come join our family, stay, we hire to retire. The data doesn't support that sort of thing. And so the question that we should start asking is, how do we support this reality of what the data is telling us, that permanent employment is dead, and that we really need to start establishing tours of duty inside companies to really support the long-term growth of an individual versus assuming they're going to stay at our company forever, because the data says they're not.
See, I love this conversation because I feel like for so long in the traditional workforce, it's been enter the workforce with one specific job and you're going to stay here for the rest of your life. And you know what? If you move up in the company, you move up in the company. You might get that standard 1.5% raise every year. You might get an increase to your benefits. But at the end of the day, what you're getting is that personal growth and that familial development, right? But that's not the case anymore because that's not what today's job seekers and what the workforce is looking for. We're looking for upward mobility. We're looking for career growth. We're looking for fulfillment inside of our career as opposed to this traditional fulfillment inside the family, I think is where we kind of have transitioned from. And with that, companies have to change their appeal to how they hire now with this practice. Can you talk about that as a strategy for now increasing tenure instead of maybe saying, you know what, you're going to stay with us forever? It's just more of a come stay with us for now and then we'll springboard you to the next leap.
Yeah, so I really like this concept around the tour of duty, kind of like in the military where an employer and an employee come to an agreement leading up to them joining the team to say, all right, you're coming to this team. We expect you to help us achieve these goals, but in return, we're going to give you this salary, these benefits, and these learning opportunities, and this opportunity to expand your network. And let's commit to a 18-month, 36-month, 4-year tour of duty, whatever it may be. And at the end of that time, let's review together. Did we achieve the goals that we set out? And also, what are your personal goals in your career? And as a company, if we can meet those goals, then let's map out a new tour of duty. If we can't, then let's set you up for long-term success. Because one of the biggest missteps that organizations make is that when someone leaves a company, they blackball them and say, they left, they're dead to us. But that's really foolish because your alumni, the people that have worked at your company and moved on elsewhere, can become your biggest ambassadors in helping you get new customers, but even new team members. And potentially they can become your future leaders because they got some experience inside other organizations that maybe they wouldn't have gotten in your own. So it's a really interesting concept that I definitely think more companies should be taking a look at as part of their retention and team growth strategy.
And Max, kind of along those same lines, what about kind of having a little bit of an open door to return? I can picture so many people leaving, venturing out into a new position, but only finding that the grass wasn't indeed greener on the other side. Can you talk to the position of maybe returning or even becoming a leader in the space and returning with some of those skill sets back to that company?
Well, of course, at this point, we're looking at two different types of work. Like if we're looking at truck drivers specifically or folks that are more on the frontline workforce, like in trucking, the rehire rate for companies is 5 to 15%. So that actually becomes a really valuable pool for companies to pull from, to have a strategy to reach out to these folks and say, hey, where did we miss the mark? And is the grass not as green? Come back over here. Let's map out a plan to make you successful. But then on the knowledge worker side, as far as inside an office, really, I lost my train of thought there. But as far as the setting up for their return, a lot of times it's, hey, here's opportunities to help you grow inside the business. Do you want to be a part of that? And often they may have gotten some experience somewhere else that they wouldn't have gotten elsewhere.
And Max, when we're talking about these millennials now and having this kind of mindset, and that's a really big culture shift from what traditional leadership in the workplace has looked like, right? Like as Anthony mentioned, a lot of it was you leave us, so sorry, don't bother coming back. We'll right. make the door hit you on the way out, kind of thing. And that evolves, and it makes for a better and I guess more appealing workforce. Do you think that those millennials who do choose to stay the course and stay and grow into those leadership positions now, they have the power to kind of change the entire hiring industry, right, as they continue to evolve into those leadership roles?
So it depends if the company gives them an opportunity. Again, in that tour of duty concept, it does take two to tango. You have to have a handshake agreement between two parties. So a person inside a company can be really committed to growing, learning, and taking that path to leadership. But if that company's not open to helping that person grow, then it may not be a successful endeavor. When I think about our company or just companies in general, there's really three things that companies need to provide to their people to make it really hard for them to leave their company. And the first thing is that you have to provide enough compensation where money's off the table, and make it where it's competitive in the market. And the market's moved a ton, and so companies have to be aware of where their compensation rates are. The second thing is making sure that the people on board like the team that they work with and the manager that they're reporting up to, because if there's friction there, that makes work less enjoyable. And then the third thing is making sure that people feel like they're learning and growing and being challenged. And for any of us, if we do the same thing over and over again, it starts to feel repetitive and monotonous, and we get curious about what are those other new challenges out there. That's just human nature. So if you focus on those three things as a company, money, team, and learning, then it's really hard to get somebody to go elsewhere. But if one of those things are missing, all of a sudden, you're at 67% success rate. That's a D in school. So it's really important to make sure companies are aligned with their team as often as possible.
Max, I love that three-part breakdown. I think it's something that a lot of companies should kind of strive for sure. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. It's always great having you on.
Of course, thank you for having me.